So guys, thank you. Welcome to my talk about identity in the metaverse. I think of all the talks that you've probably heard, you heard the language of, we need identity, we need, internet of ownership. And each of you, everybody has an identity. So I guess it should be important to understand how going forward, an identity in the metaverse will probably happen. What are the things that you, might want to look at? And I'm just waiting for the clicker. There's some delay. So, as I said, I'm Björn Obermeier. I'm in our Metaverse Continuum Business Group. I'm our global blockchain technology capability lead. I speak about blockchain, Web3, NFTs as well, if you want me to, but not in this talk. Digital identity as well. If you want to find out more about me or want to connect, there's a QR code on LinkedIn, then you can chase me and we can connect. Okay, so I want to start with one number, 150. Oh, that's cool. 42. Okay, so that works. 150. This is the average amount of online accounts each and everybody has. That may be true, may not be true, and actually it doesn't really matter if it's 80, if it's 150, if it's 200. And I hope for most of you that the amount of passwords is more than just one for all these accounts, right? I know some only have, that one password. But anyway, what I want you to think about is, when you created all these 150 accounts or 120 or whatever accounts it was, what was the experience when you created all these online accounts? Right? I think it dramatically varied from an experience point of view. Somewhere you made an online account where maybe you had to, show up at a place and, flash your identity card, driver's license, or whatever other form of documentation. And probably they made you, to tick a lot of boxes, sign a lot of things. You had to give consent that they share your data with someone that they claim, which you can never follow. And probably if you created an online account for Facebook or Instagram, it's probably a little bit different than what you did. And probably at Facebook, the only thing that you have to give is email address and your username, or any email address and username. So there's a different experience. And, sorry, that was too quick. So on this lower bar here, that kind of represents buckets of these online accounts that you have, right? And that varies from individual to individual. Some maybe only have like 3 accounts. But they're like categories of accounts that you have. Some stuff where you have banking accounts, where there's a validated identity. You can do a lot of things, right? You can, access services online. You can trade stock. You can trade equity. You can, withdraw money, send money somewhere else. You have accounts where you can just use social interaction like Instagram, Facebook, and whatever is hot and hip currently. And if you think about all these accounts that you have, they represent different personas that you might have, right? In one world, you are an authenticated. At my bank, I'm Björn Obermeier. In Facebook, I may be someone else, right? And have different rights and rules and different things that I want to share or don't want to share. And probably the point I want to make is this is a big number. It's very likely to grow as we go forward. Right? It's only going to go more, and most of these accounts work in isolation, right? I guess somebody in this room has a bank account, probably 2 bank accounts. At my bank, they know everything about me. I show them all the information. I wanted to have additional services, and still they ask me to identify myself with stuff that they actually already should know. And a lot of these accounts work in isolation. And the experience is really bad. And if somebody tried to delete their Facebook account, it's super hard. It's a super bad experience because they don't want you to, get this account deleted. So the point again is, it's a growing number, works in isolation, There's some federated services, like logging on with Google, logging on with Facebook. Works, has their limitations, but the experience is not where it should be. And I think as we enter the metaverse, and as these virtual worlds come up, where we roam between virtual and physical, using that model that is depicted here, it's probably not the right model. So we need a digital identity to prove who we are, and that others can verify what we say who we are, to verify our claim. Because I want to know in an online world who I'm doing business with. Who is this one? In case I don't want to know, that's fine as well, but I come to that very soon. So what is it that organizations need to do in order to enable digital identity in the metaverse, right? There's an emphasis to have this in a seamless and frictionless way and having safe experiences. I think that's absolutely critical, that the experience in the metaverse is safe, and that privacy by design is applied as well, and that the user is giving back the control over what's happening to your data, right? That you can give consent, who sees what, when, and how. It's a very important point, and specifically organizations, as they understand there is new technology coming, there's new software coming, new virtual worlds. Think about these headsets, that are available and will be available. There's a lot of training needed, a lot of education needed, a lot of thinking going on the service design for this future experience and how we enter these worlds. And I think, as well, like we've seen it on blockchain and Web3, it's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen where people need to talk to each other. We've learned a lot from the early days of the internet to where we're right now. We need to apply this knowledge as well now, and I think we have the right and an obligation and a chance to set it in the right direction right now as the metaverse develops. I think it's important as well that we have control over who we share data with, for how long, and that we have the right as well to revoke that access. So if we think people should not be having that data anymore because I don't want to have longer services from them, then we can remove that. Right now, a lot of stuff is in the wild. I have no clue where it is, who accesses my data, no clue at all. Sometimes I'm opening my mailbox, I'm getting a letter from someone, I have no clue how they got my address. And I think the more we enter and work in digital worlds, I think it's just a growing problem. So we need to address that. So how can we enable all these experiences in the metaverse? How can we enable something that is frictionless, something that is choice-enabled, where we as people, as a society, or as an individual can choose specific content? And how can we enable the safety, right? So the experiences must be frictionless from the start. Meaning if it's a bad experience, if it takes me ages to log into a virtual world, or I don't know, setting up something and going to a place where nobody is, I think nobody's going to ever use that. So from the first experience, from the first hello of entering a virtual world, for instance, we want to have the right experience, right? Then users expect choice and personalization. In the internet as we have it today, there's a lot of personalization happening based on probably a gazillion cookies that are set, whether you like it or not. You want to have content that is tailored for you based on whatever your profile or persona is in a given context. And the same must be true as well. I think that's what we want going forward in the metaverse, when we hop from different worlds, that we have choice whether or not we want to have personalized content or not. And I think, let me just see, there must be multiple levels of services where we choose to opt in to give data away or not. If we want to receive special services or maybe more value-add services, then probably it's okay to give some data away because you get something in return. But there must be options as well to say, well, I don't want to show anything, so I'm not going to give any data away. It's probably like today, so everybody who joins this session from the internet, I mean, you can say it's a hybrid metaverse world as well. It's different channels to use to view my talk here today. People can access this talk unauthenticated. It's just open, it's free, nobody had to give anything away, so there is, was a choice, so easy access to consume that session. And the last thing, which I think is very important, because you can get these things, these two things, doesn't work. So the first two buckets, you can get them right, but I think specifically on the safety and privacy of the experiences, there's high attention to get that right. Because it's touching something very sensitive, our identities and attributes of our identity. So I think safety and the privacy must be native to all these experiences. It shouldn't come later, it shouldn't come as an additional layer. It needs to be built in all the experience that we have going forward in a metaverse or metaverse-like experience. And think about the work that you currently do. It's getting more and more digital. You use cell phones, you use a lot of Microsoft Teams or other collaboration systems. And your virtual interactions and experience getting more and more digital as well. I think everybody buys online on Amazon and looks videos from streaming services. So there's a lot of digitization happening, but it's pretty scattered. So we want to make sure that there's the right amount of safety. So to enable this better experience, I think it's absolutely critical to apply digital identity to people, organizations, and things, because going forward, they will all interact together. Things like machinery, organizations who might give you credentials as proof of employment, and identity for you in a given context, whether that's you as a person, that's you as a gamer, that's you as a, employee of a company. There will be multiple different personas that you will have going forward, and it needs to be built in as a critical infrastructure part. It needs to be embedded into solution design, not just somewhere next, but it needs to be the foundational layer of enabling the metaverse in a secure and safe sound. So I spoke a little bit about digital identity, accounts, credentials. So I just wanted to look at the language as well a little bit and set that right. And generally, digital identity kind of denotes a collection of identity credentials, right? But if you look at identity, identity is who you are with your attributes, right? There's permanent attributes and there's semi-permanent attributes. I mean, you have a first name, a last name that may change for various reasons. You have biometric information, you have hair color, or if you have hair or not. That is all kind of something, attributes that makes you you, right? This identity and those attributes, in turn, can be used in order to give you credentials, right? These credentials are issued by organizations that, depending on the context, verify your attributes and give you a credential. It could be anything from, classically a passport, which is a physical credential, if you will. It could be digital credentials as well. And that goes beyond just being like a picture of your passport. A digital identity credential is something that you can use in an online world to authenticate yourself, and that others can, verify the claim of who you are, for instance. So there's additional levels of information in there to verify this digital identity is what it's supposed to be, or it's not what it's supposed to be. It's not just simply flashing a picture of your physical passport. And then we have, I spoke about a persona. I think a lot of people here have personas. I'm working for Accenture, I have a role there. At home, I'm a dad and a CFO and CTO. I'm an online gamer, there I have a persona. So different personas that you can have, and those different personas might have different choices of what I'm willing to opt in a specific world, or what kind of identity I want to be, which is an interesting thing to keep in mind. And then I guess a lot of people have heard about avatars, specifically as we talk about the metaverse. Avatar is a digital representation of a or multiple personas. They can come in a lot of shapes. I think they're getting better. Finally, with Facebook, they have or with Meta, they have legs now, so that's, I think, a major quantum leap in development. But it's critical as well to appreciate who you want to be as an avatar, how you represent yourself as an avatar in an online world. And I'm coming to some of these dimensions later on. Now, today we already have tons of interactions between people, between organizations and things, right? So as we think about the services and solutions that we have to design and will design as we enter more and more into a metaverse world, I think I want to spend some minutes to allude to these 5 key principles that we think that kind of need to be, in order to be balanced when we design and when we think about these identity systems going forward. So anonymity. Users must not always be forced to share data. Think about if you go someplace like browsing a store, you can go in, you don't need to go and then show your identity card, hey, it's Björn, I just want to see what new sneakers are in store. You can just go places wherever you want without showing anything additionally. And I think this should be a key principle to remain anonymous where you can remain anonymous. Right? Safety. I think we need to apply guardrails to apply safety as we enter and roam between virtual and physical worlds, digital worlds. Think about content that is 18 plus, so that, for instance, kids cannot access something, right? And digital identity can help for that. If, I don't know, kids have a digital identity, they go to a website, a store, they can verify, okay, this person is under 18 years, so they do not get access to that content. And I think this is something very important that we want to probably build in going forward. The ease of use and verification. It should be easy to enter somewhere and authenticate yourself or verify your identity. I think this is something that you use like every day. If you look at your iPhone or an Android version of it, there's Face ID, which easily and seamlessly for you guys, and for me as well, you just look at the phone, it knows who you are, it verifies your biometrics, and it authenticates you to your phone or into any other applications. Same with Touch ID, right? You have the fingerprint, again, biometrics used in combination with identity, and you get access to the services you want. Is it easy to use? Absolutely. Do we all use it? Probably. I mean, for me personally, it was a game changer, not knowing all these passwords, typing them in, flashing it up. And I think this is something that we want to build in a balanced way as well, where it's possible going forward. Trust. So I want to share my identity with with others, and these others can verify who I am. So if I log on to a bank or if I go to a bank and want to do something there, probably they want to see a verified identity, right? A verified identity, probably during the pandemic, more people had to do it. When you opened a bank account somewhere and used your mobile phone, maybe you did video identification, so there was an agent, they looked at your identity card or passport, they checked all your attributes, and in the end, what they did is basically they converted this into a digital identity that is verified. I think you need a special license for that in order to have a different level of assurance that you probably need. There are various levels of assurance in order to have different services and access different services, but this is something that as a key principle in the metaverse we want to build in, that there is the possibility to do that. And then there is privacy and choice. And I think that's a very intriguing concept, that you can only share, or that you have the possibility to only share what you would like to share. Like if you enter a club, right, and you have to be over 18, why do you need to show all your identity details, what you're currently doing, to the bouncer at the club? I mean, they see everything, your name, your last name, your address, your photo, everything. Why would they need to see this? The only thing that they actually should care about is whether or not you're over 18. And if that photo somehow matches your current look. So those are some of the elements, specifically, you know, are you over 18? Yes. Are you, I don't know, do you have brown hair? Are you allowed to, I'm just making up some examples. Are you allowed to drive a specific motor vehicle? Yes, but you do not need to share all these other information that nobody should be interested in. And there's interesting technology, specifically in the world of digital identity and decentralized identity, that can make that happen. I will allude to this very briefly. For those who've actually read the subline of this talk, I will be speaking about zero-knowledge proofs very briefly, because it may be a rabbit hole to go into. So we've understood the language now a little bit, and then, you know, can now sort some of these terms, you know, what they mean: credentials, digital identity credentials, identity. And I want to speak about some principles for safe interaction. Think about some people flew here. Well, actually, they flew probably to Vienna and came here, then by taxi. But just imagine the last time you flew to some different country, right? What do? You check what are the entry rules at the destination, what kind of credentials do I need to show, like my passport, for how long does it need to be valid? And we can all do that, right? And probably in this room there's like 10 different organizations or authorities that gave you a passport. There's people with a German passport, with a Slovakian passport, with a British passport. It's passports from different authorities, but still, it's sort of a shared world where you can travel in the physical world, right? Because they have some shared infrastructure that actually allows you to use your passport, and people accept that passport because there's sort of a standard to validate who are you, and that you can use this credential. Similarly to that, we need this in a virtual world or in the Metaverse. Specifically, when we roam between virtual worlds and virtual and physical, we want to use as well our credentials that someone has issued to us with authority that we can use to enter these worlds, whatever these rules are. Right now, we already have a lot of virtual worlds. I'm just picking on Altspace VR, for instance. You can go in there, and maybe somebody has set rules how to enter and what to do with that. And maybe there's another virtual world, right? Right now, you can probably go into either world, but maybe you do not have the same credential or the same identity. So going forward, I think it's very important to understand that with a shared identity infrastructure, we can enable this seamless experience and the safety of using our identities in a digital form to enter all these worlds while not really exposing who we are, right? It must be okay to just go somewhere, and if we want to remain anonymous, because it's an anonymous space, that we can do that. And I think this is something very critical for organizations as we build the Metaverse going forward. Not only organizations, but as well countries, EU level. So it's a huge spectrum of people and organizations that have to work together to get this right. And they already started years ago into the right direction. Now this slide maybe sometimes I need to show in the next room, but still, I wanted to talk about it as we think about identity, because that's, for me, a key ingredient for a responsible metaverse, and we at Accenture value a responsible metaverse, which is very important because we know already a lot of stuff about how to build systems. We had a steep learning curve, I guess, from the early days of the internet until where we're now. We want to apply this. So I just wanted to share a little bit of what we think, what the industry thinks on how to build a responsible metaverse. So look about privacy. I mean, I spoke about the necessity to enter a metaverse while preserving your privacy, only sharing the details that you're willing to share, which should be built in by design. And we should think about, what, who can share what, when, and how can you revoke it again. I think that's very important. In an ideal world, we sit at our data, we control who sees it, and we can revoke access to that data as well. then resilience. We want to build systems that scale as more users come on and join these virtual worlds or physical worlds. That is not only kept by, like, I don't know, 10 people and then you have to wait in line. I think we have a lot of technology in order to scale, these virtual worlds, the metaverses, and in order to scale how all these interactions work. So this needs to be built in. This is something that is applied, all around the world on many systems, but same goes for the metaverse. Security. We have to implement security by design, and not only for the underlying blockchain or identity layer, but as well for XR, for instance, so for these virtual worlds, and as well for the headsets, for the edge devices going forward, for 5G. So there's a huge spectrum of things that will make the metaverse, and we want to make sure that we think about the privacy, end-to-end, the security end-to-end, as this entire thing develops. And going forward, there will be probably new devices, new means of interactions, new virtual worlds. So who's controlling it? Who makes it safe? Who makes it sound? IPR protection. So that means intellectual property rights. This is something that a lot of times people ask when speaking about NFTs. Right? It's an NFT, so I own it. Whatever art is associated with that non-fungible token. Just be aware, there's things that you can do and there's things that you cannot do. And it's maybe easy in a digital world where digital copies are perfect to infringe IP rights. So you should be careful in understanding and trying to navigate what is permissible, what is not permissible in a metaverse. So you see it's two dimensions here. There's the trust dimension and there's the human dimension. And I think the metaverse is really at the intersection where technology meets our personal needs. And I think in order to look at this from an end-to-end perspective, we need to look at the basic human needs as well when designing these metaverse worlds. So safety, so we should put measures in place that whatever content is circulated, whatever, I don't know if it's a forum, we need to incentivize good behavior. We need to have education. I think there's a lot of cases on platforms where, virtual bullying is happening because people are totally anonymous and can do whatever. I think this is not a place that we would like to design, as we already know it. So we want to probably incentivize good behavior. We want to put in guardrails that we maybe can understand who's actually participating and who's talking something that they shouldn't be talking. And I think as we enter more and more virtual worlds and virtual collaboration, I think this is a big item. Sustainability. This is not only, I don't want to dwell on Bitcoin is bad. Think about Web3, think about all these technologies, what they do. And in line with sustainability and the carbon footprint and the energy intensity, I would think as well we should think about using all this innovation that we have. Think about all these headsets that we have in the XR worlds to do immersive training, get together, work together. I mean, this saves a lot of money as well. That saves a lot of carbon footprint. So there's a lot of innovation that helps us to be more sustainable, and that's part of the metaverse as well. Well-being, yeah. We want that people feel safe and sound in these environments and not come into a place where they're totally scared because they don't know what's going on and nobody's taking or looking of what's going on. So we need to focus on this as well. And then inclusion, diversity, and accessibility. I think it's absolutely important that you can easily access any of these virtual worlds. A key to access these virtual worlds and the metaverse will be your identity or any of your identities. And it should be open for everyone. You should have the right to join whatever you want to join. Otherwise, if it's an exclusive environment, I think this is not what we would like to have. Good. So, shifting gears. Because the talk briefly talked about zero-knowledge proofs and zero knowledge. This may be complicated, I get that, but I'll give it a try. And I will have, towards the end, a practical example. So you see Alice and Bob here, so this is classic cryptography. Alice wants to share a secret with Bob. They're encrypting it, and Eve in the middle She can't know anything because it's encrypted. She doesn't have the key. This is how cryptology works, basically. This is not about zero-knowledge proof. Don't think this has anything to do about zero-knowledge proofs. Zero-knowledge proofs is essentially you have a secret, and then, I mean, you want to keep a secret, probably a secret, and want to share somebody or want to prove somebody that you know that secret, that you have information about information. So let me introduce Paula and Victor, who's going to help me to explain that. Paula is a prover, and Victor is a verifier. Paula has a secret, and she wants to prove to Victor that she knows that secret. Victor, he can know the secret or cannot know the secret, it doesn't really matter. All that Victor wants to understand is whether or not Paula knows the secret. So how would that work over zero-knowledge proofs? So there's a classic example, the Alibaba's cave. Sorry. It's still there? Yeah. So Paula goes into a cave. It has like 2 tunnels, A and B, and towards the end there's a back door, and it has a pin code on it. Right? Paula says, I know the pin code, without ever telling Victor what the pin code is. Victor randomly selects any of the tunnels and say, well, Paula, you go in tunnel A, and you come out of tunnel B. Or any random numbers, letters, whatever you want. So there's a couple of things that can happen. Paula goes to tunnel A. She knows the code, comes out in tunnel B. Victor can see that. Probably she knows the code, so Victor has proof that she knows the code. There is a chance that she got lucky, so Victor is doing that again. This time she says, well, Paula, go in tunnel B and come out in tunnel A. Well, maybe she was lucky again. Maybe it's just 2 digits or it's 4 digits, I don't know. There is a probability that you got lucky. If you repeat this like 20 times, there's a 1 in like 10 million chances that she really got lucky. So the more attempts you do, the more confidence you get that she actually knows that secret PIN code. Now, why is this important, and how does that pertain to digital identity? It's the same principle as, and that's the secret sauce, if you want to prove that you're over 18, you can use basically this scheme, I mean, not sending someone through a tunnel, but that scheme to say, well, I'm over 18, and over math, they can verify that your statement is true without ever revealing your date of birth, right? And this is, in part, one of the most foundational technologies, zero knowledge, and as well for those who understand layer 2 networks, zero knowledge proofs of validity are included in these scaling solutions. Really cool stuff, but you have to do it a couple of times to get, because there's never perfect probability. If you do it a lot, probably you come to this number. Like if you do it a gazillion times, you come to like 99 dot whatever nines % that is, to have confidence that this is actually a valid claim. Now, for those of you who think, well, I didn't get it, I want to challenge you as well, very briefly. I guess you've seen that's a Where's Waldo picture. And I tell you, I know where Waldo is, but I'm not going to tell you where Waldo is. So you might think how you do that. So I just assume this is a paper, and I've cut a hole in it. And I slid the image under the paper, and there's Waldo. So now I prove to you that I know where Waldo is. But do you know where Waldo is? You don't. Because the paper could be anywhere, right? So right now I shared knowledge that I know where Waldo is, but you don't. So I just, proved my claim that I know where he is. You're still clueless. If you want to have a copy of this, no worry. So you can test it with your kids, and they will probably think you are magic. Why is this important, specifically for the metaverse? Because there is an epic trade-off and an imbalance between privacy and scalability. Right? The more secure you want to have something, the more private you want to have something, probably, to the cost of scalability, it goes down. And with zero-knowledge proofs, because they're highly scalable, they're putting the balance back in while enabling you to keep your private information without revealing them. Yes, I think that's my talk, and we have some minutes for questions.
So how would you
shoot.
How do you prove that you are over 18 without removing your data from
That's my next talk next year. That's a lot of math for 3 minutes. So it's the same principle. I cannot tell you in a minute how to do that. It's a lot of math, really. We can take this offline.
There you go. Because we have Slido right here. We have 4 minutes, 12 devoted to top question here. How can the user be sure that data marked as private is really not shared with anybody?
Well, in an ideal world, when you have digital identity and have stuff that sits in a wallet that you give somebody consent to access it, and that's basically how a combination of digital identity and blockchain kind of works. You are in control over this data. You give somebody with another identity the consent, and as you are controlling who sees it, you can always go in and stop. If the question is about, can somebody copy-paste your information? Maybe. I mean, there's always means of doing screenshots and stuff like that. But if you did it over a zero-knowledge proof, where you don't reveal this information, then probably not. Sharing information in the clear is never a good idea.
Okay, love it. How to overcome on the paradox of staying anonymous versus taking responsibility.
Which one is that?
It's the first one. Always taking the most voted.
Oh yeah, okay. I think it's a balance between being completely anonymous or knowing something over someone. I think for very good reasons there are regulated markets where you have to know what's going on and have to know pieces of an information. And there's solutions where you want to have full anonymity. I think it really depends on what you want to do and where you want to go. I think it's an exercise that you have to ask yourself, how much do I want to give away, versus how anonymous do I want to be, and where do I want to, or which service do I want to get. It's an epic balance.
Okay. Would future digital identity be manifested by custom ID solutions for Facebook, Google, Apple? At the end, will we need a centralized system to cater for all?
One system to rule them all. I haven't seen it yet. So I suppose everything that I do see that's currently going on from an EU level, you know, when I think about digital identity and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of people working together to solve this consistently. I think there will be central authorities involved, and probably they should, like your governments, you trust them. I think the Facebooks, the Googles of the world, they will offer identity services as well, some form of identity. If you can use that identity to open a bank account, I don't know. Maybe in the future you can. Maybe they add verification services so that you have the right level of assurance, so you can use your Google ID. But it could go in any direction. From a national and from an EU level, I think self-sovereign identity, digital identity, having this with authority is the goal, but they may add auxiliary services to it.
Okay, next question links a bit to the one ring to rule them all. We'll take the second one. How are you as Accenture thinking about the risks that Metaverse can bring to mental health? We already know what risks a virtual world hold. Are we responsible? There you go.
Thank you. As we design the Metaverse, and you see me talking about the principles that we look at, we at Accenture are building responsible Metaverse platforms. There's, in my view, no one who's creating a Metaverse. It's multiple people working on multiple platforms to bring this together. So we at Accenture, again, you've seen our core principles. We built this into a platform that we think makes sense for enterprises and consumers in order to be responsible. If there's elements that are irresponsible, probably we should discuss and do not do that and highlight this to the customer, because there might be various risk levels to do that. Plus, if it's not supporting mental health, it's probably a bad idea.
Okay, and we'll do one more. Are there ideas how one could kill DSGVO pop-ups? No idea what that is. With digital identify infrastructure for good.
Okay, so that's a zero knowledge proof that whoever asked that question is German. That's GDPR for those who do not.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So I just decrypted it. I don't know what a GDPR pop-up is. Is that the thing when you browse and you have to all these cookies? No.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah, it's a good question. If anybody knows the answer, please tell me.
Okay, and on that bombshell, thank you so much, Björn Obermeier.
Thank you.